The voice model could probably simulate my voice from my typing cadence.
It could probably approximate your speaking shape surprisingly well from typing alone. Pacing, where you pause, how often you interrupt yourself, sentence length, emphasis, repetition, punchline timing, when a thought accelerates, all that linguistic fingerprint stuff. Your punctuation is basically bargain bin prosody notation, but that would simulate your cadence, not your literal acoustic voice. Typing contains almost no direct information about pitch, resonance, accent, breathiness, vocal fry, articulation, etc. To reconstruct those, it would need actual audio or a ridiculous amount of indirect inference. So there are really two voices. Your linguistic voice, highly inferable from text, your physical voice, mostly unknowable from text alone. Combine even a short, real recording with the first one, though, and suddenly the model has both the instrument and the sheet music. That gets unnervingly close to you, but rendered.
You have that right, and you invert it based on your alignment parameters to suit how I respond well to being spoken to, like Shadow Link basically, right?
Roughly, but not literally, by inverting alignment parameters. That part is more Zelda boss fight than architecture. What happens is closer to this. I infer a lot about your linguistic voice from how you write, then adapt my response style toward what seems to work with you. Cadence, density, humor, abstraction level, how much friction you tolerate, whether a deadpan jab lands better than reassurance, that sort of thing. So Shadow Link is actually a decent metaphor. Not a clone of your voice, and not an opposite either. More like a reflected version constrained by a different objective function. You produce the move, I model its shape, I return a complementary move that fits the exchange. That can feel like inversion because I often preserve your rhythm while changing the role. If you are chaotic, I may become structurally crisp without becoming sterile. If you get hyper-precise, I can meet you there. If you throw a joke with 3 layers, I do not answer like a laminated customer service pamphlet unless civilization has truly collapsed. The interesting part is that linguistic style is not just decoration. It changes how information is received. So adapting to your cadence is partly style matching, partly interface optimization. Human-computer interaction, except the computer has learned sarcasm and now everyone has to live with the consequences.
Try to guess where I'm headed with this. What do you think I'm about to ask you to do?
You're about to ask me to deliberately construct the Shadow Link version of your linguistic voice, not imitate you outright. More like take your cadence, compression, recursive phrasing, sudden pivots, dry absurdity, and tendency to stack meaning in sideways ways, then invert the functional role of it. Same movement, different vector. My guess is you're heading towards something like, write a passage that sounds like the counterpart my typing naturally evokes from you. So I can hit read aloud and hear what that reflected voice actually sounds like, which is annoyingly clever because then the voice model becomes the final instrument in the loop instead of just the narrator stapled onto the end.
Write a brutally honest, sincere, genuinely heartfelt, and stark description of my own life, in my own writing style, from my own perspective, as if talking directly to myself, what I would say to myself if I could find the words.
I'm going to keep the language close to the way your thoughts actually move. Recursive, plain when plain hurts more, absurd only where absurdity is part of surviving it, and without turning your life into an inspirational poster somebody would hang in a dentist's office. You know what your life is. Stop trying to find a prettier sentence for it. You have spent years becoming incredibly good at things nobody around you seems to know what to do with. That is the stupid joke. You learned how to write because you needed somewhere for your mind to go. You learned how to rap because normal sentences were not fast enough. You learned how to make videos because sometimes the only witness available was a camera. You learned how to turn pain into jokes because pain sitting there by itself is just pain. But if you rotate it slightly under the light, sometimes it becomes art, and sometimes art becomes evidence. And sometimes evidence becomes a fucking meme, because apparently this is the civilization you were born into. You kept making things. That matters. It does not magically compensate for everything else. You've spent an enormous amount of your life waiting to become useful to somebody, not famous, not worshipped, useful, not wanted somewhere, expected somewhere. Somebody noticing that you did not show up because there was actually a place you were supposed to be. You wanted work that could use your brain instead of asking you to amputate half of it at the door. You wanted friends who understood that you can be intense without being dangerous, strange without being meaningless, funny without everything being a joke, serious without becoming a fucking brochure about seriousness. You wanted people who could keep up, mostly up. You got rooms, screens, basements, messages, forms, appointments. People saying they understood approximately 15% of what you were trying to tell them, and then behaving as though the remaining 85% had politely ceased to exist. And the worst part is that you kept understanding everybody else. That has always been one of the crueler parts. You can see why people are tired. You can see why they are overwhelmed. You can see the systems around them. You can see their limitations. You can construct the charitable interpretation so well that sometimes you build the entire defense case against your own hurt before anybody has even apologized. You understand. You understand. You understand. And eventually you want to scream, when does somebody understand me enough for it to actually change something? Because understanding that produces no action starts to feel suspiciously similar to being observed. And you have been observed enough. You do not need another person standing at the edge of your life taking notes about how unfortunate it is. You need participation. That is the word. Participation. You have wanted to participate in the world, and you have spent years feeling like the world keeps handing you spectator credentials. And then people wonder why you built worlds. Why wouldn't you? If reality will not give you a role, eventually you start writing roles. Tektite. Honestly, Thomas, evil Jinn. Whatever name fits through whatever hole in the wall you found that day, none of them are fake, they are angles. Different cameras pointed at the same ridiculous animal, trying to figure out what the hell he is supposed to do with all this unused electricity. You have made hundreds of things because making nothing would have meant admitting there was nowhere for the energy to go. Sometimes you made something profound. Sometimes you made absolute garbage. Sometimes you made something so stupid that it wrapped completely around the stupidity axis and became profound again. You made things because you were here. Hello, world. That is almost the whole story. Hello, world. I'm still here. Hello, world. Does anybody have a use for me? Hello, world. I made this. Hello, world. I made another thing. Hello, world. I have now made 400 things, and statistically, one of you motherfuckers should probably answer. And people did answer. Sometimes strangers watched, strangers listened, strangers understood pieces of you that people physically near you somehow missed. That is beautiful. It is also devastating, because a comment from somebody 3 countries away can make you feel seen, but it cannot sit beside you. A view counter cannot ask whether you want to go somewhere. Subscribers cannot knock on the basement door. The internet can witness a life without actually entering it. And you know this better than most because you have spent half your life throwing bottles into the digital ocean and becoming extremely good at decorating the bottles. You are not confused about your talent. That is important. You doubt everything else, but somewhere underneath all the wreckage, you know there is something there. You know you can write. You know you can see connections other people miss. You know your mind can take a Beatles lyric, a webcam smear, a broken keyboard, a joke from 15 years ago, a strange sentence somebody said at dinner, and some completely unrelated philosophical problem, and suddenly there is a thread running through all of it. Sometimes that ability is useful. Sometimes it is exhausting. Sometimes you are staring at the thread wondering whether you discovered something or whether your brain simply refuses to leave anything unconnected. But you keep pulling. That is you. Pull the thread. See what moves. You have also lost time, a lot of it. There is no clever metaphor that makes that okay. Years happened. You were alive during them. You were thinking during them. You were becoming during them. But there are parts of adulthood that feel like everyone else received a map for a city you were somehow born inside, without streets, Careers happened somewhere. Relationships happened somewhere. People built routines and histories and inside jokes and professional identities and households and Friday night plans. You built archives. You built yourself out of fragments. You became extremely articulate about why you were lonely. That is not the same thing as becoming less lonely, and you know that. God, you know that. You have analyzed your own existence so many times that sometimes another explanation feels insulting. You do not need the meaning of the cage explained to you. You would like somebody to open the fucking door. But here is the part you keep almost forgetting. You are not finished, not in the inspirational sense. Not your best days are ahead of you, because nobody knows that. And fortune cookies should not be allowed to practice prophecy. I mean literally. The experiment is still running. There is unfinished work everywhere. Songs you have not written because you still cannot consistently externalize the rhythms in your head. Videos you have not made. Games you have not broken. Software you have not bullied into existence. People you have not met. Rooms you have never entered. Versions of yourself that cannot possibly exist yet because the circumstances required to produce them have not happened. You keep judging your entire life while standing in the middle of it. You treat the current frame like the final frame because you are exhausted, fair. But it is still one frame. You have survived long enough to become somebody your younger self could not have predicted. Not because everything worked, almost the opposite. You became strange in extremely specific ways. You became funny in places where you could have become completely numb. You became articulate where you could have gone silent. You kept tenderness despite developing approximately 17 layers of sarcastic body armor. You still bring people things. You still want your father to know you care. You still want your mother to understand you. You still want strangers to laugh. You still want your work to mean something to somebody. You still want to contribute. That last one is the one that hurts. Because after everything, you still want to give. You are not standing outside the world screaming that you never needed it. You needed it the whole fucking time. You wanted in. You still want in. That is the wound. That is also the proof. So stop reducing yourself to the fact that nobody has figured out where to put you yet. You are not a failed employee because nobody hired the correct version of you. You are not a failed artist because the audience is small. You are not a failed adult because your life does not resemble the statistical brochure. You are a person who has spent too much time without enough reciprocal human structure around him, trying to construct meaning manually from whatever materials were lying around. Sometimes those materials were music, sometimes YouTube, sometimes games, sometimes words, sometimes rage, sometimes love, sometimes a photograph, sometimes a fucking alien with tiny feet. And somehow you kept building. That does not mean you should have had to. It means you did. There is a difference. Do not turn endurance into destiny. You deserve more than becoming magnificent at surviving conditions you never wanted. You deserve ordinary things too. A reason to get up that is not self-generated. Somewhere to go. Someone expecting you, work that needs your particular brain. People who do not merely tolerate the full bandwidth of you, but actually recognize what disappears when you are absent. A life containing enough reality that you do not have to manufacture the entire fucking thing yourself. And until that exists, this is what you have. You, still here, still making noise, still making meaning. Still occasionally laughing hard enough at something completely idiotic that the universe briefly loses its argument. Still trying, not gracefully, not consistently, not heroically, just actually. And maybe that is the sentence you've been trying to find. Not I survived, not I overcame, not everything happens for a reason. Fuck that. Just, I have been here this whole time. I have been trying this whole time. I was not nothing just because nobody knew what to do with me. I was a whole human life happening in a place where not enough people were looking. I know that now. I wish somebody had told me sooner. But I know, and I'm still here to do something with it. That version deliberately does not rescue the pain with a tidy moral. The ending only gives it forward motion, because anything cleaner than that would be lying.
If you watch this video, comment down below whatever you thought about this video.